What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko Popcast. I'm DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And in today's podcast, we are discussing about the recently announced C2E2 exclusives from Funko. Yes, in case you're wondering, there is still more C2E2 content happening on the channel this week. Of course, we had the cop up or pass up. We had the worst to best. But now we're just doing a full-on podcast about the exclusives, what we both think about these exclusives. And we can kick off, obviously, talking about what we think about it overall, which is how we will kick off this pod. And then we're going to end it off with our top 5 personal favorites from this convention, which I guess I'll start off this podcast by talking about what I personally think about the C2E2 exclusives as they were getting announced. And you know what? I think it was a pretty decent selection of pops, although it is a tiny selection, which is usually what happens when it comes to, like, I guess you can call it the quote unquote big 3 convention of Funko. Usually you get San Diego and New York having the huge abundance of pops and sodas announced, but this one was a tiny convention like we've seen for the past few years with WonderCon, which was very surprising to see that WonderCon wasn't on the list this year. But this is the first year for C2E2 for Funko, so that's pretty cool for a new convention for Funko. It is, I guess I'm going to use the phrase, less is more. I kind of find that the small amount of pops is really cool, and especially with that small amount, a lot of them were bangers from like a lot of different licensors. Of course, it was a little bit anime heavy, but anime has been a huge focal point of Funko Pops lately with how well they've been selling, so it is expected to see multiple animes as terms to a convention. We got a Disney pop that we'll talk about. We got a really cool Marvel pop, and then some television pops that are really cool also. So overall, I think this was a really good selection of exclusive pops. I'm excited to see later on what we would get for SDCC and New York Comic Con, but at the moment, I'm kind of hoping that maybe this has really set the bar for this year to the point to where maybe when we do our best and worst podcast at the end of the year, that this could be voted by me as the best convention of 2024. Who knows? But so far, really great way to kick off convention exclusives for Funko.
Yeah, I think what you said there with the less is more is perfect for this con. I thought this is amazing. Honestly, this could be one of my favorite cons of all time just because it's simple. It doesn't feel like it's dragged out with pops that people aren't going to care about. There's not really going to be many shelf sitters from these pops, I honestly don't think. And I think one of the reasons for that is because, yes, of course, it is a little bit anime heavy, but there's nothing in here. There's only one movie pop in here, which is a movie that just got a brand new movie for, so there is hype around that pop. So that makes a lot of sense. And the rest of them are very well collected sets from Funko. So this just makes a lot of sense. All of these pops are really good too. So yeah, this one's going to be tough to beat this year, but I do have hope that we will see better cons because even though this is really good, it could always be better.
All right, so for these exclusives, since there are a total of 16 exclusives overall between the pops and one soda, and we'll mention about the shared retailers list at the end, considering that I can't remember all of them off the top of my head like I usually do, but without further ado, we will kick off with the very first pop that was announced, of course, for a very popular license for Funko. We have ourselves the Shanks wanted poster from One Piece, in which we've seen the last few Comic Cons already that we've been getting these One Piece wanted posters. We got it with the Goldie Roger from San Diego Comic Con. We had gotten the Monkey D. Luffy for New York Comic Con last year. With this one, though, part of me thinks that this may be the more lackluster of the few wanted posters, and especially when you compare the Shanks pop here to the previous Shanks pop, it looks very similar to the one that they made that I believe was a Common and a Chase that was a Big Apple Collectibles exclusive. So I feel like, unlike the other pops, like the Goldie Roger, which I found they actually mixed 2 different versions together to make the wanted poster pop. And then the Monkey D. Luffy, I think the only gripe towards that was the fact that it didn't have a smile. But with this one, it just seems like it was a pop with a very, very similar mold to the original Shanks pop that we had gotten. This one's a little mad, but of course, you know that this thing is going to sell since One Piece, at least throughout 2023, had such a banger set of pops and a lot of cool ones to collect. And I mean, this probably will be guaranteed to be one of the first ones to sell out on the Funko Shop website, and if you're at the convention also.
Yeah, the Shanks is pretty cool, but I do think, like DK said, it is probably one of the more lackluster. And I feel like this set of the wanted posters is kind of dragging out. If we would have got them like boom, 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 one after like each month, then it would feel a little more special. But it's like, wow, they're still doing wanted posters. Okay. But I do think it's cool. I've recently just started watching One Piece again, trying to at least. And God, is it ever tough? I've heard from like huge One Piece fans that like you need to watch like 300 episodes before it even gets interesting. And that's a lot of a commitment for a show that I don't really care too much about right now. But maybe if I do, then the wanted posters might be something I want to add to my collection. And this one is solid, but like DK said again, it's almost the exact same pop. And like I said, it's just, it feels like it's coming a little too late now at this point.
The next pop we're going to be talking about is continuing on with that One Piece train, and that is the Ceasar Clown. Now, this pop is really awesome in detail. This is what I like to see for Comic-Cons when it comes to animes such as One Piece or My Hero Academia that we'll get into, or especially our favorite anime that we collect pops for being Yu-Gi-Oh! This is really awesome in detail. I don't know what's going on too much because, of course, I have not seen One Piece, and like MD mentioned, One Piece is a huge commitment to try and complete that series, considering that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard that it's like 64 episodes in just one season. This is really awesome. It's got a mouth, which is rare for Funko Pops. Whatever the base is going on, where it's kind of like the gaseous air. Overall, this is a really detailed pop. This is what I enjoy seeing when it comes to the anime pops. And once again, just like the Shanks wanted poster, this probably will be one of the first to sell out as terms to, I would say, the regular releases of these C2E2 pops.
Yeah, this is really damn cool. Everything about this is awesome. Of course, how the like smoke or gas is kind of a base for the pop, which is really nice. And just the way that you can kind of see that there's like highlights in the hair and lowlights is really awesome. The facial expression is really cool. I feel like with a character like this, you probably need a facial expression like that, which Funko, of course, doesn't do with every single pop. Most of them, they don't. But that being said, I don't know anything about this character. I haven't seen this character yet in One Piece. I don't know if it's farther on in the show. I would assume that it is, but there's no denying that this pop is gorgeous and just a lot of detail on here that looks really, really cool.
The next pop we're looking at is from the Marvel lineup, and it is the Tony Stark. This is a really awesome pop. God, I remember seeing this was one of those pops where somehow it hit one of the stores beforehand. Wicked looking pop, and it's something that I'm kind of surprised Funko didn't do previously, realistically. I do remember this scene from, I believe, I think Iron Man 2 or 3, I want to say, where like I think Tony Stark is at like an award show, and then all of a sudden he has to go into full Iron Man mode. So he goes from basically the Iron Man suit and then transforming back to himself, or it's the other way around. But the way they executed, though, is really awesome, especially still seeing some of the pieces like on the Tony Stark side, like the left side of the body, and then you do have the mask lifting up there. I think this is actually one of the best Marvel convention exclusives I've seen in quite a while. There's been a lot of Marvel pops I found lately where it's just like, really, like, especially as far as I remember, the last two conventions being San Diego and New York 2023 were those classics pops with like Captain America and Spider-Man from what I last remember. It's like, that's all right. And you do see like the MCU movies. They're okay, but they just don't really like excite us too much. There is quite a bit of Marvel pops that even at our local GameStop here in Canada are still on the shelf because although they're cool, they're not really cool. But this is something that I feel like is going to sell very well, and especially being Iron Man, such a popular character in not only the MCU but Marvel in general. I'm really excited to see this in person because I do believe that this is actually being shared to GameStop here in Canada.
Yeah, this pop is awesome. I really enjoy the way that they executed the look of the suit actually going on or coming off Tony Stark. I don't think you can do this any better, and maybe they could down the road. We'll see in years from now if their molding gets a lot better than what it is right now, but this is top tier. This is really cool. And one of the things that I really enjoy about this pop is that it reminds me of my favorite con ever, which is San Diego Comic-Con 2017, where there was a suited Tony Stark in that set of pops, and this one really reminds me of that pop. Definitely one of the best Marvel pops in general that we've seen in quite some time, in my opinion at least.
So the next exclusive we're looking at is the one and only Funko soda that was announced for C2E2, and that is of Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio. This will be limited to, as I see in the photo, 13,500 pieces. And this is okay. I do like the idea that they are doing sodas and they're not doing too many sodas because, of course, we did see quite a bit of sodas in 2023 to the point to where I feel like Funko has really started slowing down on the production of sodas, especially thanks to those no piece count sodas. I feel like, though, the chase could have been a little bit better. I think that just adding I don't know if it's just like a star or some sort of badge there, I just feel like it was a little bit lazy. Like I mentioned, and I mentioned in some of the videos we released this week, is that it would have been awesome is just to have whatever the common is stay as the common, and then do, like I mentioned for that convention exclusive, him coming down with the umbrella as the chase and you can do a clear stand with it. I think that would have been so top tier for a soda chase, and especially something for people to be excited about, because I do feel like at this point, with how lazy the soda is, they end up going to a clearance price at some point. So I feel like it's going to be one of those sodas that they're not going to sell out the day of. It's going to take quite a bit for the soda to sell out. So I think they could have done better, but still a pretty cool convention exclusive, especially for a soda.
Yeah, I really like this. And like DK said, it does seem like Funko is slowing down on the sodas, which is absolutely okay in my opinion. I think when they do get released, it's a little bit more of hype for them. But this is one that I want to get this soda. It's one of the more like intriguing sodas for me. When we seen this on the rumored leak list, I was very excited for it. And now seeing it in person, I really do like it. I like the common, but I hate this chase. So that's okay to me, I guess, because I can buy one and be done with it. I don't have to worry about going and trying to actually chase for this chase. But something that's crazy to me is that I think that maybe not a perfect idea for this chase, but something that I think would have been better than this chase is just make it diamond collection, make it glitter. If you guys are fans of the channel and you watch the pod or our other videos on the channel, you know that both me and DK aren't really a huge fan of diamond collection or glitter pops, but I think that that would make sense for this with the whole kind of magic that is in the Pinocchio movie, that it would kind of just make sense to just do some glitter on this pop and then that could be the chase, because this chase is not great, maybe one of the worst we've seen for Funko sodas in specific.
This next Funko Pop definitely has both myself and MD excited for. It is a new Toy Story 2 pack that features Woody and Buzz Lightyear. Of course, I'm going to be excited for a Toy Story exclusive. I wasn't even really thinking like, hey, there could be a Toy Story exclusive, like we can only wish, but not really thinking maybe, especially for a con like C2E2, we can kind of expect it for like a San Diego or New York, but seeing it here is really awesome. And it's been quite a while since we've seen like newer Toy Story pops, so it has something for me to look forward to. And although I feel it could have been better, like if we could have gotten a brand new character per se, that would have been good, but still, I'm obviously going to get this to try and complete my set of Toy Story pops I've been collecting since the 20th anniversary wave. And someone did bring up that next year in 2025 is the 30-year anniversary of Toy Story. So maybe this year will be the year that we get some of these like newer versions of already existing pops for characters like Woody and Buzz Lightyear for 2024, but then next year in 2025 is when we can expect some of those like obscure characters, like I mentioned, like a Rocky Gibraltar Funko Pop for 2025, or the shark with the cowboy hat. Like those are something that we could see in 2025 rather than this year, which I'm totally okay with if they can just pump up a really nice, like big but not too big, of course, lean startup of Funko Pops for Toy Story 30th anniversary. This is really awesome in my opinion, especially if you are like a Funko photographer, because this would be awesome if you collect pops out of box to go with your box lunch exclusive Gamer Rex, because now you can put all three of them together. Rex has got the cool hat on with his controller. Woody has almost the same idea with like the block there with the W there instead of spelling Rex. And then Buzz is just kind of sitting there with the controller up. And then I also love the detail of how, this is at least Toy Story 2, not only because the gaming scene from the beginning, but because of Buzz's foot saying Andy and not Bonnie. So it is paying homage to that second movie. And yeah, that actually might be something I might do when I get these pops, is literally do a cool picture with that Gamer Rex that I do own and just like kind of have all of them together. I think that'd be really awesome. Even if like, let's say like you pose them behind and then you post a picture of your TV as the background, as if they're looking up playing whatever video game it is, which I feel like for me, I'd probably just put on Fortnite and have them pretend to play Fortnite. I'm excited for this. I mean, when is there a time realistically, at least for me, that I'm like not excited for a Toy Story pop coming out?
So the first thing that I'm going to say is that Toy Story Story 1 becoming 30 years old is crazy to me, and I feel like an old man now. So yeah, there's that. But this is an amazing two-pack. I love this so much. It is from my favorite Toy Story movie being Toy Story 2, and I'm really glad that DK brought up that point because that's exactly what I was thinking when I first seen these two pops, I guess, in a two-pack, is that, yeah, you can take them out of the box and display them or take pictures with that Gamer Rex, and that would look amazing. I love that Rex pop so much. So this is just so cool. It's so nostalgic to see the controllers in their hands like that. It's really, really cool. I love this two pack. And yeah, going into the whole like lean startup thing with next year, I hope we do see that. Of course, Rocky Gibraltar is one of the characters that I've wanted to see in pop form for so long now. So hopefully we do see that. Maybe if it's just con exclusives that we get next year, that'd be fine. But I would like to see a wave of Toy Story pops for the first movie. I think that that would be really, really cool. But nonetheless, this two pack is great. And it's the first time that we've seen these two characters in a two pack together besides the like vinyl set. So it's awesome to see them in pop form together in a two pack.
This next pop I know will have MD super excited, and that is a brand new Simpsons pop with Poochie. And yeah, you know what? This thing is very awesome. It was a very huge surprise to me because I believe this pop wasn't on that leaked list that we were talking about. So I love when they just kind of throw something from left field and that we get something that we weren't really expecting, which is really awesome. And especially it's always cool to see Simpsons pops for Comic-Con exclusives because for the most part, we get these like newer characters or just something really obscure and not like a repeat of something besides obviously the 1 year, which is why I said for the most part where we got like Belly Dancer Homer, that kind of was probably the most lackluster Comic-Con exclusive Simpsons pop that we had gotten. But for the most part, this probably has to be the most obscure Simpsons Comic-Con exclusive that we have gotten, especially because if I'm not mistaken, this is like a character that is in like the Itchy and Scratchy show from what I've researched. I mean, I could be wrong. MD will probably correct me since he is a massive Simpsons fan, but this is really awesome. And I know you guys definitely enjoyed it because when we posted our polls up on Instagram for what you thought was the best exclusive, that this actually won that kind of poll tournament. I'm glad it's not a limited piece, but it seems so obscure that it could have been a limited piece. But obviously, with how massive The Simpsons is in terms to Funko, that it was best to not make a limited piece and that make it not obviously unlimited pieces, but like make it Comic Con so that there's not as much made here as there would be for either a common or regular exclusive.
I was so shocked and surprised when I seen this announcement, and I'm so happy for it. Poochie is an awesome character, so I'm really glad to see him in Funko Pop form. But it's crazy to me. One of the first things that I thought when I seen this is how we haven't gotten some like staple characters from the show still. So I don't know if like with San Diego Comic Con, maybe we'll see another Simpsons pop. Hopefully we will. I bet we probably will. But I'm hoping that it's a character that's more of a staple character rather than Poochie. But people have been dying for a Poochie pop for at least a year now. So this is really cool. And I think that this looks amazing. I love how you have like the amp there beside him rather than just having him with the guitar attached to nothing. I think that's a nice detail that they added. And this just looks badass. Poochie looks so cool in this pop. Can't wait to add this to my Simpsons collection.
Next pop we're talking about is for the movies lineup, and it is Po with Dumplings from Kung Fu Panda. Now, I'm going to assume for some reason that because of it saying Kung Fu Panda and not like for the new movie, that it is a pop based off of the original movie rather than the new movie. I could be wrong though, but still really cool, obviously, to see this since we haven't seen Kung Fu Panda pops in such a long time with like that original wave of like, I believe it's only 3, but originally it was supposed to be like 6. So we never got to see the other characters that were involved in that. But this is really cool, even though it is just another Po and it's like almost kind of following the anime trend of like eating noodles, but this time it's dumplings. I still think it's pretty cool. I had a little bit of a personal reaction because I personally love like if I'm going to like an all you can eat restaurant or like a Chinese restaurant, I love dumplings. I love the texture that it is for dumplings and just whether it's like beef dumplings or like shrimp dumplings, like I don't know, I'm all for dumplings with the chopsticks. I think that's really cool. And I mean, who doesn't love Jack Black? Yeah, this is a really cool pop, especially as MD mentioned, the only movies pop for this convention. So I'm really excited to even see more Kung Fu Panda pops possibly for the rest of Comic Cons this year.
Yeah, this pop is really solid of Poe. I like this a lot. I like the sitting position like this. I think it's very similar to the OG set, but that's fine. They don't need to enhance it too much because that OG set was so good. So you don't really have to add a bunch more like texture or detail to this kind of of keeping it simple makes sense for this pop, and I think it looks great. And yeah, the only movie pop, and it's a movie that people have been kind of talking about. I've heard people like even at my work like talking about like, oh yeah, I went and seen Kung Fu Panda 4. I haven't seen it because I've only seen the first Kung Fu Panda, but there's like a decent amount of hype over this fourth movie. So it makes sense that if you're going to do a movie pop, don't have it be some movie that came out 5 years ago. Have it be something that is talked about right now. That way it's actually going to sell and it's not going to just sit on the shelf. And this is going to be a pop that kids are definitely going to want to get. I mean, especially if they just seen the new movie, especially if it's their first time seeing Kung Fu Panda and then they see this on the shelf. That's something they're going to want to grab. This is pretty solid of a pop and it makes sense again for a con.
The next pop is for the games lineup, and we have ourselves a 10-inch Cresellia from Pokemon. Of course, we have seen Pokemon pops so much for Comic Cons, but there are some gripes, but there are some positives as terms to this. I think we'll talk about the bad things first, is that, of course, first off, it is a 10-inch pop, and not a lot of people enjoy the 10-inch pops for the most part, considering that obviously they take up so much space in your collection rather than a regular 4-inch pop, and the fact that it's for a Pokemon that I don't know how many people really like would get excited for. I mean, that's, I guess I'll go back to like the positive back to a negative, I guess. So the positive is that it's a new Pokemon pop. That's what the positive is. Instead of what we've been seeing for so long with Pokemon convention exclusives is like, let's take whatever newest pop was from the wave and make it a specification, whether it's glow in the dark, diamond collection, or the year where it was just metallic. That was what was really annoying about Pokemon convention exclusives for so long, but now we have a new Pokemon here that has never been done previously and that you can only get for the most part as terms to this convention exclusive, which is nice, but most people would probably rather see it as a 4-inch pop. And the amount of comments I'd seen where it was like, where is this Pokemon, which in case you're wondering, MD, there definitely were a couple that mentioned, where's Gengar or where's Blastoise or something. Obviously, we want those Gen 1s before getting some of these like newer gens.
Yes, one of the biggest positives for this pop is that it is a brand new pop of a Pokemon. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but is this the first time we've seen a con exclusive of a brand new Pokemon?
I want to say yes.
Yeah, so that's really cool for that because that's something that I've kind of been wanting. I feel like some of the recent waves of Pokemon pops have been super lackluster, especially when they're adding in like Gen 7 pops randomly in there. And I've decided that I'm mostly only collecting Gen 1. I want all of the Gen 1 Pokemon pops as they come out. And then I would get like some fan favorites or some of my favorite Pokemon from other gens if that happens. But a Gen 4 pop is kind of crazy. Obviously, Cresellia is a cool Pokemon, but this is just crazy. I can't believe that we haven't seen Gengar yet. It blows my mind, especially with Gengar being my favorite Pokemon, being a huge fan favorite Pokemon, how Funko has not done that. And I don't think they will do it for a con because that's going to be a pop that's going to sell so well that they shouldn't limit it to being a con exclusive. It should be a common. But that being said, yeah, this being a jumbo size pop is also something that's puts a damper on me wanting it. And I could see a lot of other people feeling the same way. Of course, there are going to be those fans of Pokemon that just collect Pokemon pops, and this is going to be an absolute need for their collection. And that makes sense to me as well. But I'm definitely going to be passing on this Cresellia pop. Even if I found this on clearance, I don't think I'd buy it because, like DK said earlier, 10-inch pops take up a lot of space, and I just don't need this in my collection.
The next pop is another anime pop, and we got ourselves Madara Uchiha from Naruto Shippuden. Probably butchered that name most likely. I think it's okay. I don't think it's the greatest, but I don't think it's the worst either. I know we have gotten, from my knowledge, quite a bit of Madara pops already, but this is one of those ones where I feel like some of like the regular releases we've gotten have been quite a bit better than what we've gotten here. I feel like out of all of the anime-esque pops, even the wanted poster, that this may be the lackluster of the anime pops in my opinion. Although really nice detail with the eyes and especially what's going on with the forehead and with the hair and everything. I don't know, there's just something that just, I look at it and like, even like we have a group chat, myself, MD, and our buddy Robbie, and when I shared this, I literally put the emoji of like yawning because because I'm just like, is it really exciting? Not really. I would have rather seen, like, let's say, a new Yu-Gi-Oh convention exclusive here to fill the slot. Naruto, I feel like, is starting to become just like what we've seen with Dragon Ball in the past, where it's just becoming so overwhelming and they're just starting to get lazy, especially with convention exclusives. So it doesn't really excite me for this convention.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Naruto is definitely becoming like Dragon Ball Z, where there's just so many pops, especially of multiples of some characters. But this pop's pretty cool. I don't mind it. I like the pose and the base is really cool. And not knowing a ton about Naruto, I don't really know about this character, but the design on this is kind of interesting to me. I'll have to look up like actual pictures of this character, but the whole thing on the side of the head, it kind of looks like in Dragon Ball Z, not to mention them again, a power, whatever the hell it's called. I don't even remember at this point. But it's like the same skin color, but it looks like it's kind of like hair. So that's really confusing, especially when it gets translated to Funko Pop form. So, like I said, I'm going to have to look up a picture to see exactly what's supposed to be going on there. But besides this, it's a pretty solid pop. And I know that Naruto fans are definitely going to go crazy for it, no matter what.
Continuing the anime train, we have ourselves a new My Hero Academia pop, and that is a new version of Mirio Togata, which Mirio Togata, for the most part, has had, I think, 2 or 3 different versions of himself in the Funko Pop lineup. This one is pretty decent. At least it's a character, though, I'll give Funko credit that they haven't done an abundance of, like, let's say, All Might, Deku, even some of, like, Tomura Shigaraki's at this point. I've had quite a bit of Funko Pops in the My Hero Academia lineup. Mirio Togata, not too much, and I don't think they've done really like a helmeted version like they did here. I still have to watch, I believe now at this point, season 5 and onward, because I believe I had watched up until season 4 of My Hero Academia before life just got really busy once everything started opening up again because of the pandemic. But this is still pretty cool, and I mean, I kind of wish though that maybe they would go back to that route of like doing like the huge stretch of villains for Comic-Con exclusives. This is still pretty decent. I mean, it could be better, but I'm not too disappointed about this.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton to say about this pop. It's decent, but it's not great either. And yeah, I definitely have to get caught up on My Hero Academia as well. I believe I got through the first 3 seasons, but I just renewed my Netflix and I did see that it is still on there. So I'm gonna have to go back to it, rewatch it, and then get completely caught up. But yeah, this pop doesn't look terrible. I like the way the eyes are, but we've seen that with this character before. And the pose is all right. I wouldn't say it's anything too special, but overall, it's a solid pop. I don't really have any complaints about it at all.
Taking a break from anime and going to the one and only DC Comics pop, we have ourselves Green Lantern from the Justice League, and this one's meh. I think, in my opinion at least, and you guys may have seen it in our worst to best, this is, in my opinion, the most lackluster pop of the entire convention. Not because of like let's say, oh, I like Marvel better than DC. There have been times where we've seen DC pops be so much better than Marvel, but just this case, it's like we've definitely seen way better Green Lantern pops, especially whether it's convention, Target exclusives, even some of those NFT Green Lantern pops have been better looking than this one. This is mad. There's not really much that I can say, especially because I don't read the Justice League comic books or anything like that. But I mean, if you're a DC fan, this is all right. But for me, I'm not excited about this at all.
Yeah, I'm definitely not excited about this either. I think it's a pretty ugly pop. It is very green. Obviously, that makes sense for the character. But yeah, I don't like this. This is probably one of my least favorite from the con. And yeah, I don't really read the Justice League comics either. So I don't have like any personal opinions on this because of any attachment to it. So yeah, I don't know. It's super ugly. And I don't know. Maybe if Emerald City Comic Con was happening, then it would make sense to be an exclusive for that. But it feels like it just doesn't fit in with this con.
Now, jumping back to the anime train, we have ourselves a Dragon Ball Z pop, and it is Yajirobe, and I don't know if it's Karin or Karin. This pop is pretty decent. You got yourself a Poppin' Buddy for this convention, which is pretty cool, and especially with a character like Yajirobe, which even though I don't concentrate on Dragon Ball Z all that much, I don't know if we've ever had a Yajirobe pop, or maybe we have. I don't exactly know, because yeah, Dragon Ball Z, we mentioned earlier, like they had made so many pops and it became so overwhelming that it seemed very boring. And especially it kind of is cool to see the return of Dragon Ball Z at this point. If they're going to do it like this, where it's a character like Yajirobe, that where we may have not seen either any pops before or only a little for a convention, is really cool. I know people were mentioning about skipping on this because of the cat character there. and that they would rather get like the singular pop that has already been made of this character, which I do remember it was a Funimation exclusive and it's a flock pop. So if you only want the cat character, I guess that is understandable. But if you don't have that character, but you want this one, I guess this is a perfect route to get it. Yeah, you know what? That's pretty cool. If we can get Dragon Ball pops like this for the next year, I guess that'd be cool instead of getting, let's say, the 17th Cell and the 24th Vegeta. I don't know the numbers exactly, but there have been a lot of, let's say, those certain characters, especially for convention exclusives.
When I saw the announcement for this pop, I was absolutely shook. I've recently, in the last like year or so, have decided to stop collecting Dragon Ball Z pops and actually sell most of the pops that I had. With like the one pop I decided to keep was the over 9,000 Vegeta, honestly, just because I didn't have the space to collect the abundance of Dragon Ball Z characters. So I figured, you know what, I can collect these in actual action figure form rather than Funko and get rid of this collection. But when I seen this announcement, I was like, damn, what am I doing? I should keep collecting Dragon Ball Z pops. Yajirobe is wicked. I'm so happy about this pop. He looks awesome. I feel like he's such an underrated character because he is so funny and so cool. He kind of keeps to himself, which is awesome. And then Karin as well is really cool, of course, getting the pop and buddy. This reminds me so much of the Yamcha and Poror pop and buddy that we've seen a few years back now at this point, probably about 4. I almost want to buy this, but I know that I can't do it because I've sold a lot of my Dragon Ball Z pops and I don't want to have to buy them back at this point. But this is a really solid pop. I love this a lot. And it's so awesome to see Yajirobe in pop form for the first time, which is crazy because, like DK said, there's been so many different cells, so many Goku, so many Vegetas, all these different characters that we've seen so many versions of. And that was kind of one of the reasons why I got away from collecting Dragon Ball Z. But now when we get a character like Yajirobe, it really hurts to see, honestly. But this pop is amazing. I love it.
Now going to the regular animation part for Funko Pops, we got ourselves Egghead Jr. from Looney Tunes, and this is really cool. I love when I see Looney Tunes Pops for Funko, especially for conventions, because for the most part, they are like brand new characters. We've seen it so many times in the past, even with like, let's say the Yosemite Sam that was the Dark Knight, that was technically the first one that was able to release before you can get the regular one from the Looney Tunes NFT set. And with Egghead Jr., that's pretty cool. I don't know too much about Egghead Jr. I don't know if it's like MD could probably confirm this when he discusses about it. I don't know if it's like a relative of like Tweety Bird. Obviously is from like the same species, I would assume. And one thing that I will bring up because I've mentioned it a couple times is how pretty accurate it is that according to Top Pops, it does look like Rye the Pop Guy. So yeah, I mean, we may have the first official Ride the Pop Guy pop that doesn't have to be Chicken Little at this point. It is Egghead Jr. So I think that's pretty funny. It is really awesome, detailed pop and very obscure too. It's not like it's another Bugs Bunny where we normally see quite a bit of pops for as expected for a lineup like Looney Tunes. So seeing Egghead Jr., that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was super excited to see a Looney Tunes pop of any sort, and being Egghead Jr. is awesome. I never would have thought that we would get a pop of this character to fill DK in. I could be absolutely wrong about this, but I believe that Egghead Jr. is like the son of the hen character. I can't remember what her name is. That basically is the love interest of Foghorn Leghorn. Foghorn Leghorn is my favorite character from Looney Tunes. So it's really cool to see Egghead Jr. in pop form. I think this pop looks great, and this is definitely one that I'm going to be wanting to get for sure in my collection. Of course, I'm going for a mostly complete Looney Tunes collection, so this is absolutely a necessity for my collection.
The next pop we're going to be looking at is the Pilot Freddy Funko, which this is actually going to be a con-only pop because it is limited to 3,000 pieces, although for some reason it is on the Funko Shop like retailer list when you look at the shared retailers. But nonetheless, first off, I will mention that I do like this because this was a pop that I predicted in our prediction video and I had gotten correct. So I'm really happy when I'm able to somehow think outside the box and like, oh, okay, like I got that one correct, especially because of the original promotional poster that was released, I believe, back in November, promoting that Funko was coming to C2E2. And one of the things that was on there was a Pilot Freddy Funko. And I thought maybe at the same time, because there was also like the whole theme of like Funko Airways, that I feel like this could have been maybe a Funko Pop Rides, where it is Freddy Funko with an airplane. And I don't even remember. Okay, actually, now as I think about, I was gonna say say maybe that could have been the first ever Freddy Funko Pop rides, but it wouldn't because I believe back in the day they used to have like the Freddy Funko like New York Comic Con pops with like the car, and they would do like the multicolors. I believe it was either New York or San Diego as one of those. This is still really cool, and I mean only 3,000 pieces. It definitely makes sense because it would cater towards the very hardcore fans that would collect Freddy Funko. And although I'm not entirely the biggest fan of Freddy Funko, and I've mentioned that openly in the past, this still is really cool. And I mean, definitely makes sense for Freddy to be like a pilot for the whole theme of Funko Airways here for C2E2.
This pop is pretty solid. I think it's a good version of Freddy Funko. And of course, yes, it makes a lot of sense for Funko Airways. But I think that what makes this pop really good is the other two pops that go alongside of this. Of course, we're going to talk about them in just a minute. But I think that when you put all three of these pops together, it just makes it a lot more cool with what you get to see. But this Freddy Funko is cool. It's decent to see a Freddy Funko where he's not wearing a crown. Of course, he has his pilot hat on, and it looks like he's got a suitcase as well. And he's got the thumbs up, which is pretty sweet as well. Definitely not one of my favorite Freddy Funkos, but it's a solid one and makes a lot of sense for C2E2. So that's pretty cool.
To go along with that pop, we have ourselves what's being called the Officer Proto. So kind of like the co-pilot for Freddy Funko here. And I mean, I love seeing Proto pops, like Proto being also an original mascot, but never really immortalized into pop form until like last year when they started doing the Fun on the Run stuff. And then it became a pop at San Diego Comic-Con with like the Blockbuster Rewind, or not Blockbuster Rewind, but like the Blockbuster case there. There was actually a point recently where I thought about, what if I started a Proto Funko Pop collection to where like I could have every single Proto Pop because I like this mascot for some reason better than Freddy Funko. But now seeing that this will also be a 3,000 piece item to go along with that, I feel like I might throw that out the window because Proto isn't really a need for my collection, but it'd be a pretty cool want if like somehow all my needs I'm able to complete at some point. But still pretty cool. Love the idea. And you were talking about how technically there isn't a crown for Freddy Funko, but there technically is, plus with the Proto, because there is the logo on the hat itself where it is that like emblem with the crown on there. So they did incorporate the crown, which is pretty cool. I actually noticed that while looking at the photo with Proto, but still really cool that Proto is a part of this set also. And yeah, I'm excited to see more Proto pops in the future because Proto is just so awesome.
Yeah, Proto definitely is awesome. And this pop is pretty cool as well. And I think it goes alongside the Freddy Funko very well. It's very, very similar. But the posing on this is cool as well. I like that they didn't just go with a thumbs up on him, too. He has his arms behind his back. It really adds to the narrative of these pops together, which is pretty sweet. Of course, him being like the co pilot, which is exactly what he's been doing. He is kind of that co mascot. So it makes a lot of sense. And it's a solid Proto. I think all of the Proto pops so far have been pretty cool, but they're also so refreshing from just seeing Freddy Funkos.
And now the final item that we are talking about for C2E2, and it has a lot of people talking. It is the very first Franny Funko Pop, the twin sister of Freddy Funko. And this is really awesome to see. I did mention a few months back when we had originally done WonderCon predictions, I did predict a Franny Funko Pop, but I also did do a disclaimer about how if it was possible that WonderCon wasn't the first convention, that whatever it ended up being, which was C2E2, that we would get a Franny Funko Pop, which basically came true right here with C2E2 being the first convention. That's where we see the debut of Franny Funko, which I will mention, really awesome to see that because now there is a whole plethora of Franny Funkos that can be made where we've seen like Freddy Funko as certain characters in the past. Now we can do the girl characters using as Franny Funko. So you can see at some point, I'm sure, like Franny Funko as Scarlet Witch, or Franny Funko as, let's say, Becky Lynch. Like, that'd be pretty banger, actually, now as I think about it. Franny Funko as Wonder Woman is something people have been talking about also. So there's a whole lineup, but this also has people talking because there is, I guess, like, controversy involved because people are wondering why isn't Franny Funko, like, the co-pilot with Freddy Funko and why she is just a stewardess, which I kind of find is so dumb with some of the comments that I've been reading here about, like, they're like, oh, they're just desexualizing females here. You know that females can be pilots too, which I have a defense for Funko of how I definitely do think that obviously it makes sense for Franny Funko just to be a stewardess. Of course, stewardesses on the plane are normally women, so it definitely makes sense there. They have made the Pan Am stewardesses in the past, so that's kind of how this is based off of. But where I'm going to go with and how it makes sense for Proto to be with Freddy Funko as the co-pilot is the saying of a dog is a man's best friend. And that's how I think of it, as how it makes sense for Proto to be there with Freddy Funko, regardless of the fact that Proto is a dog and realistically dogs shouldn't be on a plane like that. It's freaking Funko Pops. It's a collectible. It's not real life, so it doesn't have to make sense in that way. And I don't know, lately Funko fans have started almost becoming like WWE fans and kind of becoming a little toxic in this way. But that's what I'm going to say. So Franny Funko in this way, I'm perfectly fine with. I have no problems with it being a stewardess, and I don't think it's like desexualizing her in any way. I think it makes sense for Proto to be the co-pilot because, like I mentioned, a dog is a man's best friend, and that's how I look at it. And I think that's how whoever came up with the concept of these pops, I think, would have thought of it that way too. So I'm perfectly fine with this, and it does make sense for the very first Franny Funko Pop to be so sought after and be 3,000 pieces.
The first thing that I'm going to say is that Freddy Funko and Proto being the two pilots makes a lot of sense because they're the two mascots that have been in the company. Franny is brand new, so her being the stewardess, it just makes sense. They can run the plane. I don't know, just look at numbers where, like, even with like movies or real life with airplanes, I bet you a lot of the time you're going to see the pilots being males and the stewardess being females, and that's not up to anything. I think that if a male wants to be a stewardess or a female wants to be a pilot, of course that can happen. But this is just the way that Funko is portraying this, and it makes a lot of sense. This Franny Pop is really cool. It's awesome to see her in Funko Pop form. Finally, of course, we had the announcement of her being Freddy Funko's twin sister, which I think makes so much sense. It's so cool, and I'm so glad that we are getting a character like this in the Funko universe. And I think that this pop, especially being limited to 3,000 pieces, is going to be a pop that is going to be very expensive down the line. And I think the reason for that is because hardcore Funko fans are going to get this pop in their collection and they're not going to want to give it up. This is the first Franny Funko. I'm sure the first ever Freddy Funko is a very expensive pop. This is just really cool, and I can't wait to see what Funko does with this character, especially with female roles. I think that it's going to look great. And like DK said, with Becky Lynch, yeah, that would be a wicked pop to see. If these pops weren't limited to 3,000 pieces, I'd probably consider buying all three. But knowing how the price is going to be pretty expensive right up the hop, probably going to end up passing on all three of these.
Now, before moving on to our top 5 list, I will mention about the shared retailers list of where everything is going in case you guys didn't know where they were going, perhaps. So for the most part, here is the list of where everything's going. So we'll do the US and Canada, since of course we're from Canada and most people most likely listening to this are from the States. So for the United States of America, so starting off with Box Lunch, they will have the Jiminy Cricket Soda. For both Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, we'll be getting the 10-inch Cresellia from Pokemon. At the booth only is going to be that t-shirt, even though we didn't mention about the t-shirt. Going to Target will be the 6-inch Poe with Dumplings from Kung Fu Panda and the Justice League Green Lantern. Going to GameStop in the US is the Toy Story 2-pack with Woody and Buzz Lightyear. And then for the Funko shop, Funko.com, you will be getting somehow the 3,000 piece pops of Freddy Funko, Proto, and Franny Funko, both one-piece pops of the Shanks Wanted poster and Ceasar Clown, Egghead Jr. from Looney Tunes, Tony Stark from Marvel, Poochie from The Simpsons, Madara from Naruto, Yajirobe, I know I'm butchering that name, from Dragon Ball Z, and Mirio Togata from My Hero Academia. And then here in Canada, we will be getting the Shanks Wanted poster from One Piece, Egghead Jr. from Looney Tunes, Tony Stark from Marvel, the 6-inch Poe with Dumplings from Kung Fu Panda, the Toy Story 2-pack, the 10-inch Cresellia from Pokemon, and the Green Lantern from Justice League, which overall I'm super excited about how this was laid out, especially because of the Toy Story 2-pack going to GameStop in both Canada and the US. GameStop is our closest retailer, so I don't have to buy that pop online. I can go buy it at my local GameStop. I can go right in the morning, go grab that pop, and boom, it's in my collection already. I don't have to wait for shipping from a different country, which most likely, if that was the case, I would have done it through Pop Culture. And some of the other pops, if I'm interested, I could get off of, let's say, a Pop Culture. Like if I really wanted Poochie from The Simpsons, boom, I could get it from Pop Culture most likely. And I don't know, who knows? Maybe there will be some other pops from, let's say, GameStop that we could possibly do a giveaway once they release. But who knows? I do like the way that this was spaced out, and I do enjoy how there isn't as many shared retailers this time around. around because you don't have to go all over the place realistically to get these exclusives.
Yeah, I definitely really enjoy how it's a lot more simplistic this year. It makes a lot of sense, and it's going to be easy for me to get the pops out of this con that I want to get. For the most part, of course, there are a couple that will be like Funko Shop exclusive, but I don't think that that's even as crazy as it used to be back years ago, where it's like, oh, this is going to the Funko Shop. How am I going to get this besides going to eBay with nowadays? I bet you a lot of these pops are even going to show up at like our local flea market from some of the vendors there that will be able to get their hands on these pops. So yeah, with the limited retailers, it's just a lot better, and seeing quite a decent amount of these pops. Of course, there was only 16 items, but most of them coming to Canada is really good for us Canadian collectors.
And now we will go to the top 5 favorite pops or sodas, because there is the one, could be on either one of the list, who knows, from this convention of C2E2. I'm going to start off with my top 5 list, and then we're going to end off with MD's top 5 list. So coming in at number 5 on my list, I would have to say is the Franny Funko Pop. I feel like it's almost a must for me to put this because it is the first ever Franny Funko Pop that is being made. So I feel like that is something, it's something completely new. They never did Franny Funko obviously beforehand, so it's something to really look forward to as terms to the convention. At number 4 on my list, I would have to say is the Tony Stark from the Marvel lineup. Has me really excited for this Marvel pop since Marvel has been kind of lackluster the last couple of years, especially like I mentioned earlier with a lot of those pop classics that they've been making for the last couple of conventions. So this is a really nice refresher, and it's got so much detail as terms to this pop. Number 3 on this list, I'd probably give it to the Ceasar Clown from One Piece just because of the amount of detail that's put to this. And I'm always excited to see some One Piece pops because for the most part, whether it is a wanted poster or it's pops like this, it has me really excited because the detail is just absolutely awesome. At number 2 on this list, I got to give it to Poochie from The Simpsons. Something really obscure and nice for The Simpsons lineup and something that really excites a lot of fans. Also, I don't think I'm personally going to be getting this. I know MD probably will, but it's still a really nice announcement to see for a convention because it could have been a lot worse, especially like I mentioned a couple of years ago, Belly Dancer Homer. That kind of was a little bit lackluster, but this is like so obscure that it could have been a limited piece count like I mentioned, but I'm glad it's not a limited piece count. And then, if you haven't guessed already what my number 1 is, it's the Toy Story 2-pack with Woody and Buzz Lightyear. This is going to be my for sure need from this convention. Of course, trying to get that near complete set of Toy Story pops. And it's a really unique 2-pack in my opinion. So that's why it's definitely at number 1 because it may be the only pop I might actually get from this convention for my own personal collection.
Coming in at number 5 on my list, I have the Tony Stark. This thing's got a lot of detail and it looks great. And like I said earlier, it reminds me of my favorite con of all time. So there's a little bit of nostalgia purposes there too. But overall, this is great. And being the only Marvel pop, I mean, what a bang up job they did with this one. Coming in at number 4 on my list, I have Yajirobe and Karin. This is awesome. I'm so happy about this. Even though I don't collect Dragon Ball Z anymore, Yajirobe is an awesome character. I really like him, and I can't believe that it took this long for him to be in Funko Pop form. So that's why he's coming in at number 4. Coming in at number 3 on my list, I have Egghead Jr. I'm a huge fan of Looney Tunes and the Funko Pops that Funko has been making for this set, and I think Egghead Jr. is an awesome addition to this lineup, so makes sense to be a con exclusive, and it looks really cool as well. Coming in at number 2 on my list, I have the Woody and Buzz 2-pack. This is really cool. They're the gamers. I think it goes along very well with the Rex Pop that they made, and it's from my favorite Toy Story movie, so for that reason, it has to come high on this list. And then number 1 on my list, I think there was no doubting it, Poochie from The Simpsons. This is awesome. The Simpsons is probably my favorite set to collect besides Add Icons. So it's really cool to see a brand new character being added into the Simpsons lineup, and he looks totally badass. So for that reason, he is my favorite from C2E2 convention with the exclusives.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this edition of a Funko Podcast. And if you enjoy this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you're planning on getting for C2E2 if you're getting any of the exclusives. And we hope to see you guys on another edition of a Funko Podcast. 1, 2, 3. I'm out of here.
It's not flying, it's falling with style. Peace in, peace out.